If you keep attracting bad renters, it's not bad luck, it's weak screening. Bad renters do not sneak past strong systems. They sneak past emotional-driven decisions. You approved them because you needed the booking. You ignored the red flags because you wanted the revenue. And that decision, that's what's costing you thousands of dollars. After scaling my own car rental business to over $150,000 a month, I realized something. Growth does not kill rental businesses. Bad renters do. In this video, I'm gonna break down the exact system that I used to screen my own renters and protect my fleet. More importantly, how to stick to it even when you're tempted to say yes. Now, before you think this is just check the license and move on, it's not. It's a lot more than that. And this is going to be the difference between scaling safely or slowly bleeding out from damage, downtime, chargebacks, and thefts. So let's break it down. Here's what most rental operators get completely wrong. They are screening for approval rather than elimination. What does this mean? Most people are looking for reasons to say yes to their renter, and that is the wrong mindset to have when going into this business. You should be looking for every reason to say no and disqualifying your renters. The goal should not be just to fill your calendar. It's supposed to be to protect your assets that you have. When I was a smaller operator, I used to think like this. It's just a 2-day rental, it's extra cash, it's probably gonna be fine, what could possibly happen? Those thoughts alone costed me over multiple six figures in mistakes. Often, most rental operators ignore pattern red flags. Bad renters are actually pretty predictable most of the time. A lot of the times, they will rush the booking, they'll push back on security deposits, they avoid clear answers, they ask really weird logistical questions, and they also have inconsistent communication. The problem, when your car is sitting idle, your brain starts to override your logical way of thinking. And that is the trap when it comes to car rentals. And this is why most operators end up going out of business. Here is the system that I built at $150,000 a month. When I crossed 6 figures a month, I really started to realize this. The bigger that your fleet is, the more damage actually compounds. And it's not just about the repair money that comes with each individual rental that you're having to deal with. What it's really costing you is downtime, future bookings, insurance headaches, stress, and the reputation of your business, which goes a long way when it comes to the car rental industry. So I started to build an actual system, not just a vibe, not just your gut feeling. Here's what it looks like. Step 1 is going to be a non-negotiable qualification criteria. Now, before anyone touches any of your rental cars, you're going to have very specific criteria that you cannot veer away from. One of them being age. You want to make sure that the renter is of a certain age and they are of that age every single time. Sometimes you're going to be tempted, especially if you're renting nicer cars or even economy cars, and you get a really nice younger person, maybe they're 18 years old, you rent to 21 and up. You might be tempted to rent to that 18-year-old, but there's a reason that you set these criteria and you need to stick to it to keep the integrity of your business. You need to do a driving history review. I never used to do this. I thought getting an MVR, which is a motor vehicle record, was really, really hard. But there are several softwares out there that can help you get an MVR. I'm gonna include a link for one called InsureVerify.ai. If you wanna go ahead and use that link below, they do MVR, background checks, and a multitude of other screenings. Next is going to be clear identity verification. Again, there are many softwares out there that you can use for this. I used to not do this. I would just check the license, made sure it was valid, and made sure it was not expired. Then is going to be security deposit compliance. This is probably the biggest deterrent of someone who's gonna act maliciously in your vehicle. You need to have a set amount for the security deposit and never veer away from that. You can negotiate your rental prices, you can negotiate delivery fees. You can never, ever, and I never do this anymore, is negotiate your deposit. That is for damages, that is for any mishaps, and there is no way to negotiate that. So you need to make sure that you keep a certain standard when it comes to security deposit compliance. That is the amount. Also, a very big deterrent is using a valid major credit card that you can then verify in person with a matching ID. If you do this, the chances that you get a bad renter are really, really slim, or at least a theft, because this is really hard to replicate, especially with all the information matching. So make sure you do not push back on that. A lot of my most malicious renters, they use stolen Visa gift cards for security deposits, debit cards that they can load money on, which then later you cannot get back. They would try to do cash deposits, or they would try to get the deposit waived. So you need to make sure that you stick in a very strict criteria when it comes to security deposits. You also need to make sure, as a kind of a hidden criteria, is that they have consistent communication. If something something seems off about the communication, that means they're probably working with other parties or they're having someone else rent for them. So through inconsistent communication, you can see exactly if a renter is going to maybe do something malicious in your vehicle, maybe not steal your car, but maybe they have someone else renting it for them. And that means they're probably not qualified to rent your vehicle. So if any of these criteria fail, you need to decline the rental. No questions about it. The power is not just in having the criteria. The power is actually in not breaking your criteria and bending around any of your qualifications. Step number 2 is going to be intent-based screening questions. I don't just verify the identity of every rental. I verify the intent of why they're trying to rent my vehicle in particular. Some of these common questions that can really get you really good answers, because typically if it's a malicious person, they're not going to answer them straight, are things like, what's the purpose of this rental? Where will the vehicle primarily be used? Who else is going to be driving the car? And where are you coming from? And it's not the details that matter. I don't really care about the answer to any of those questions. I need to see their tone, their hesitation, and if they think twice about the questions that I'm asking. If they have clear-cut answers, they know them right away, that means that they're not thinking about it, right? When you are legit and you're going to rent a car for whatever purpose it is, you know why you're doing it. If you're traveling somewhere, you're visiting your grandma and you fly into town and you want to rent a car and someone asks you, well, what's the purpose for using this vehicle? You're going to say, well, I'm in town to visit my grandma. And there's not going to be any hesitation when it comes to that. People that are planning nonsense and have malicious backing to why they're renting a vehicle, they hate specifics. Good renters always answer calmly, and they have a clear-cut agenda for why they're renting your vehicle, whether it's economy cars or luxury and exotic vehicles. Step 3, and I know I talked a little bit about deposits, but deposits are a filter, not just for the actual protection of, oh, I have $1,000 in case something goes wrong. Your deposit isn't just for coverage, it's a behavioral filter. People who argue aggressively about deposits or try to negotiate or saying, I don't need to do a deposit, I'm a good driver, decline them right away. Again, people who negotiate, decline them right away. High friction clients in the beginning always become problematic when something happens, or even if something doesn't happen. They just become problematic clients. Just imagine if someone's very high friction when you're trying to book them and something goes wrong. Do you think they're really going to be on your side and they're going to be truthful about what happened? The chances are slim to none. Step number 4 is you need to remove emotion from your decisions. This is probably the hardest thing to do, because when your calendar is looking empty, you have fixed expenses, you're not sure if you're going to be able to cover this month, your brain starts to switch. Your brain wants to say, just go ahead and approve the booking. So I automated my decision rules. If X happens, decline the rental. If Y happens, do a manual review of their qualifications. There are to be no emotional overrides when it comes to this process. And the reason is, if you break your own system once, you're going to break it again, and you're going to be taking on so much unnecessary risk that, yes, in the short term could make you more money, but in the long term can literally drive you out of business. Now, let me ask you something. How many times have you approved a renter and immediately had a bad feeling about the rental? That feeling is not just intuition, it's your standards slipping. Anytime I've had something seriously go wrong when it comes to letting a rental go out, having bad intuition about it, and then something does happen, it was 99% of the time, well, really 100% of the time, on things that I had to pay out of pocket. They were all based on emotional decisions. All of these problems that I could have avoided would not have happened if I had just declined the rentals. So yes, in the short term, I was making good money. Some of them were even long-term clients, but I ended up losing so much more money than if I had just declined the bookings. What getting this right actually unlocks for you. Because when screening is tight, your damage is going to drop significantly, meaning the frequency that you incur damage is going to drop, which at the end of the day, this whole business is about risk management, time management, and preventing downtime. So with the right screening, you definitely need to make sure that you're dropping damage. And essentially that is what the right screening process is going to do for you. Another thing you're going to see significantly less is stress. When you have the right screening, you're going to have less stress. In the short term, with the wrong screening, you might make more money, but you're gonna have a lot more damage, a lot more downtime. You're gonna lose a lot more money in the long term, and your stress is going to go way up. When it comes to car rentals in any business, it's all about stress management, because the last thing you wanna do is stress yourself out so bad that you burn out completely. Another thing that happens when you tighten your screening is you're going to have less insurance issues, because you're gonna have higher quality quality renters, and you're not going to have as many problems when it comes to insurance. That can add a lot of stress, and it can add damage out of pocket if you're getting insurance claims denied. Because if you have high quality renters, they're going to have good insurance policies, and it's just going to be a lot less headache when it comes to dealing with insurance, which is the number one fear for most operators and can really be the downfall of your business. Another thing is going to be chargebacks. When you have tighter screening processes, chargebacks drop significantly as well. Chargebacks are a big pain in the butt because I've personally had chargebacks that are $3,500, $2,000. That's a lot of money, especially when you've already made your car note or you've paid investors that you have consignment vehicles with. When you're running with these chargebacks, it creates a big problem. And another bigger unseen problem is when you have a lot of chargebacks with your processors, you're going to get banned. So you're going to lose a lot of money, and eventually you're not even going to be able to process money through these processors. The reason screening does this, good screening, is because these are not the kind of clients that are penny pinching and that are trying to scam you out of money. So the amount of chargebacks becomes significantly less. Once we tighten our screening processes, we hardly ever had any chargebacks to deal with. They can be very frustrating. And so it's better just to tighten your processes up front rather than dealing with the consequences later. All in all, your mental load is going to drop significantly when you have the right renters in your car. You can sleep at night. The last thing you want to do, and I've experienced this many times, you put a renter in a car and you're literally up at night thinking, oh my God, is this renter going to crash the car? Are they going to steal it from me? Is there going to be an insurance issue? Are they going to charge back money? It's just not something that's worth your time. At the end of the day, making money is important. Building a business, building a legacy is important. But if it's going to keep you up 24/7, worrying about the wrong things, now, if you're infatuated with your business and that's what's keeping you up at night, that is great. But if you're up at night worrying about the renters you put in your car, that is the last thing you want from this business. And so make sure that you keep your screening processes very tight. So when screening is tight, here's the crazy part. Your revenue goes up because instead of cycling through chaos renters, you build consistency. And consistency is what actually is going to scale you and your business. That is how I was able to grow my fleet to $150,000 a month without my fleet turning into a complete liability nightmare. Now on my way to $150,000, I was on the way to turning my fleet into a complete liability nightmare. But after tightening processes and most importantly, tightening my renter screening process, I was able to correct myself and making sure that I could actually scale. I could not imagine how my business would have went if I had continued scaling with the type of renters that I was letting in my vehicles. Here's how you can implement these changes starting this week. Number one, write down your approval criteria. Maybe you don't have a clear set of standards written down. Number two, remove anything subjective. Number three, add 3 elimination triggers. And number four, promise yourself 0 exceptions for the next 30 days. That alone is going to change your business dramatically. It's going to reduce your risk and it's going to reduce a lot of stress and a lot of headache. Trust me, because I speak this from personal experience. And that's the system. It's very simple, but it's very, very powerful. And if you're serious about building or scaling a car rental business that's not constantly breaking your cars or breaking your peace of mind, then you need actual systems, not hope. If you want help implementing this properly, I do a limited number of one-on-one strategy calls where we'll map out your best starter vehicles, renter screening rules, deposit structures, and your first 60-day plan. Apply with the first link in the description, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks again for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment.